Sandra, do we? Usually
Yes,
do
we
for this.
do.
So
Yep.
let's run through the roll call now. It's 1:01, so it's given people a margin of a minute to over what we were requiring. So over to you, Sandra.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Present.
Councillor Bartley.
Present.
Councillor Casey.
Kia ora, Sandra.
Kia ora. Councillor Collins.
I'm here, thanks, Sandra, by phone.
Thank you. Councillor Coombe.
Kia ora anō.
Kia ora. Councillor Cooper.
Aye.
Councillor Dalton.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
I'm here.
Thanks. Councillor Filipina.
Him and Shane are still just in the lunchroom. They'll be back in a minute.
Thanks. Councillor Fletcher.
Present.
Is Councillor Henderson back yet? No. Councillor Hills.
Christmas present.
Ah,
Councillor Mulholland.
Good afternoon, present.
Councillor Newman.
Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon. Councillor Sayers.
Yes, present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Present on the beach.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart. Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson.
Here, Sandra.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Can we just check Councillor Filipina?
Aye.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Hello.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart. Councillor Walker.
Present.
Thank you. Get to you, Mayor Phil.
great. Thank you,
Thanks,
Sandra.
Sandra.
Right. So we're now on to item number 14, which is Auckland Light Rail. I may move those recommendations, and I'll ask my co-sponsor, Bill Cashmore.
Did you get me, Sandra?
Yes, we got
yes,
you, Wayne, and you're cutting across
Sharon's-
what I'm saying.
Sharon's here. I was just talking to my CSA. Sorry about that.
Okay, right. Let's get back onto the business. Councillor Cashmore, are you happy to second recommendations in item number 14?
Indeed so.
Okay. Look, I'll do an introduction on this if you don't mind, and then pass over to Vanessa Blakelock from the Chief Planning Office to add any further comments. The government has pretty much, I think, made their decision on which of the options of light rail they're going to pursue. As you'll recall, we had the interim business report from the establishment unit in the form of a chair's report by Lee Orton, and it set through three alternative options. Now, I don't know which option the government has chosen, but it will be one of those. It will be one of those options because I can't conceive that the government would not go ahead, having laid the groundwork for light rail, with making an investment. The decision is likely now to be, as I understand it, sometime after mid-January, but probably before council resumes. So in terms of the recommendations that are being put to you today, they're being put today because we need the authorisation for the co-sponsors, the Deputy Mayor and myself, to respond to the government's announcement at the point that it happens. The paper, as you'll see from its recommendations, puts forward three recommendations. First, that we should welcome the decision by the government to invest in a light rail system for the Auckland Isthmus, and we should support the government's investment in Auckland's infrastructure. Now, it's pretty important that we do that. The sums of money that we're talking about could be between $9 and $16 billion. That would make this the largest ever government investment in Auckland's infrastructure system. Now, it's incumbent, I think, on us as Aucklanders, as the beneficiaries of that investment to be very supportive of it, because there may be other people in other parts of the country that think this is just another case of Auckland getting too much attention from government. Auckland is a third of the population, and if Auckland doesn't succeed, the country doesn't succeed, but that's not the way that it's looked at universally around the country. So I think it's really important that we come out and affirm a decision by government to make a big investment in the future transport system of our city. The second thing that the recommendations ask us to do is to commit to partnering with government over the new system. Now, that partnering is not going to be like the City Rail link. We are not going to be meeting half the costs of light rail. In fact, we have not budgeted to meet any of the transport costs directly of light rail, and nor do we have the money to do so. But it is important that we're a voice at the table, and it is important that we accept the responsibilities where it is appropriate to do so. And one of those major responsibilities will be, in fact, in terms of master planning, the urban development that's going to happen around the new light rail development. The third recommendation in the paper in front of you is to note really the influence that this project will have, not simply along the route that it runs from the city centre to the Mangere Airport Industrial Precinct, but the fact that this piece of infrastructure will be vital to the development of further infrastructure to produce a rapid and frequent transit network around the city, because this network needs to be the basis of rapid transit to the northwest. It needs to be the basis for the next harbour crossing to the North Shore and linking up with the Northern Busway. It needs to be the basis for going from Mangere, where light rail ends up, through to Manukau and onto Botany, so that we link with the Eastern Busway. So this project is the foundation for further developments in the northwest, the north, the south, and the east. And it's going to be really important that we actually do this. And without government funding, this project clearly isn't viable for Auckland. Without this project, we will be facing further gridlock, which is already costing New Zealand, not just Auckland, New Zealand, around $2 billion in lost productivity, and that figure will only rise into the future. So in terms of justifying a government investment in light rail, it's one that the costs of Auckland closing down, with a third of the population gridlocked, will affect the whole country. But it's also, in fact, that this is a project of national significance. And like all projects of national significance, they are funded by the government, except this will be far bigger than other projects of national significance, which are generally motorways. It's going to have a far greater effect. The last point I want to make is that this is not just a transport project. This is a project that is about shaping the future urban form of Auckland to be a quality, intensive and compact city. This project enables, when fully developed, about another 200,000 people to be housed in our city. And while the costs are eye-wateringly high, they are not net costs. If we weren't developing this network, we would be building infrastructure, and government would be building infrastructure in the Greenfields area, with the probable consequences of greater congestion and certainly greater emissions. So while the cost is high, the project is of such huge significance that this provides us with value for money, and we've seen the cost-benefit ratio, the benefit-cost ratio, which is in excess of 1%. It's 1.1%. So this is a project for New Zealand's gateway city, and by far its largest city. And for New Zealand to achieve its potential, Auckland has to achieve its potential to make the contribution that it can otherwise make to the national economy. And I think that we need to frame our arguments around that, so that we're not going to get feedback from other parts of the country. Why is Auckland receiving this investment? Why not us? And the answer is all of the reasons that I've given, and all of the reasons that are critical to the future of our country, as Auckland is critical to the future of our country. So I think it's really important that we are supportive of the government. We welcome the investment that's being made, and we partner with them, and we use this that will as a foundation for affecting the future development of our city and ease of getting around our city for literally generations to come. So that's my introduction on it. Vanessa, is there anything that you would like to add to the paper?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and kia ora koutou members. The only thing to reiterate is to reaffirm the reason for bringing this paper now is ahead of announcements later in the year and the opportunity to bring it to you as a group. And secondly, just to reaffirm that we are working as staff, working with Ministry of Transport and Treasury officials on furthering a partnering approach, and that will gather pace next year. That's all from me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Vanessa. So open now to questions, first of all. We've
Your
canvassed
Worship,
these.
I put
Yeah,
a question
Councillor
in the
Fletcher.
sidebar. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Vanessa, for this paper. Notwithstanding the need that I can see that
Councillor, I think you've muted yourself. Can you?
Apologies.
Yeah, right.
Notwithstanding the need for this governing body to delegate the authorisation to you and to the Deputy Mayor in some kind of response to government announcements, and also the referencing within the body of the paper talking about funding tools. I do note that we have some limitations on us financially, and while there are, there's discussion around it within the body of the paper, in the recommendations, there's no limitation or caveat put on the sort of funding that might be expected from the council. Funding tools, perhaps, but I would like to feel that we have traversed the issue of ongoing operational expense, and that there is not an expectation in terms of general rates. So why I'm putting this to Vanessa at this point by way of a question is, why have there been no recommendations that actually make clear the fact that the council is not in a position to be the funding partner?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Fletcher. Part of the reason for that is that because we haven't received the announcement yet, we're not sure of the detail. So this was more of an in principle welcome and support. But I will leave that to the chair if that is something that he thinks we should pursue.
You're on mute, Your Worship. Yourself.
That's yeah. We're all doing it. If I can just add to Vanessa's comments, I think everyone on this call has heard me at each time we've had a meeting with the establishment unit, making it absolutely clear that we are not in a position to fund the transport route itself. We're not in a position, we haven't put money aside, and we don't have the financial means to do that. I've made that clear directly to ministers, and what is obvious is that we will have a role to play in some aspects of financing. That may be in the operation of the light rail, because it will do that on the same basis as we do, for example, travel on heavy rail. So there'll be a financial assistance rate from government, but we'll meet some of that cost. And we'll do it by way of contributing to the normal development of the city through master planning the intensive housing that will be based around the rail stations and along the rail route. You know, I think that it is patently obvious to everyone that we do not have the financial resources to pay for a project of this nature, not half of it, not a fraction of it, and the government is aware of that. What they may wish to discuss with us at some point is what we do in regard to value uplift, where there may be uplift of properties that have a windfall benefit from being close to a rail station. As we have with CRL, we will be wanting to discuss whether those that benefit hugely from the investment of taxpayer money make some contribution back through some form of value uplift. But those details haven't been worked through. You can have my absolute assurance that we neither have the means nor the ability, nor have signalled anything other than the intention that while we will cooperate to the maximum extent, we are not in a position to pay for this.
Forgive me, Your Worship, but I wonder if that is the intention in a belts and braces approach, why you would not look to under B have some caveat there, even if it's just something along the lines of recognising the current funding restraints on the Auckland Council, but to make it quite clear that that has been the nature of the discussions, because we're taking them on trust of what you've had thus far with government, and looking in terms of authorising you to make commentary looking into the future. If it is the case, then why can we not commit it to writing under B?
Okay, so we could have something like adding on to B, noting that council is not in a financial position.
I've just suggested some wording for B. Chair is going to move it.
Oh, okay. We'll see how I go, and then we can compare our versions, Councillor. Noting the council is not in a financial position to contribute to the construction.
Well, it's interesting for me that Daniel has put up those words, because I was going to actually suggest, if you were unwilling to do it, an amendment along the lines that Daniel has put there, which is noting that none of the capital cost of the project shall fall on the Auckland Council balance sheet. I'd be very, very comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing in a slightly nicer way. But the intent will be just as clear, noting that the council is not in a financial position to contribute to the construction of light rail, but will have a role in master planning the urban development around it.
Thank you, but I might think further on that and then come back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, the reason that I've worded in that way is partly because we understand that there will be some reluctance on the part of people in other parts of the country. And if we're simply saying, no, this is great, it's good for us, but we're not contributing to it, we are contributing to it, but not financially in relation to the construction of light rail. But we will obviously around the urban development that surrounds it. Okay, right, I have, who else do we have online wanting to raise a question? Sandra, looking at you, if we got Daniel, do you, if you want to raise your question here? Oh, no, I think Councillor Walker had a question first and then Councillor Newman.
Sure. So I've got a fairly significant question for me around the resolutions as they're worded. So my question goes like this. In a position where a councillor like me is supportive of a rapid transit network, which is what is covered off in C, but I have significant reservations around the light rail project as proposed. And my reasoning for that is that I believe that there are other alternatives that deliver much quicker, much more economically, more sustainably, with more resilience and less disruption than light rail as proposed. And I've certainly seen information around that. So I am most uncomfortable to authorise resolutions that effectively wed us to something that may not be optimal at all and may fail. So would you consider an alternative wording for these resolutions so that a councillor like me that's supportive of rapid transit, and in my instance, I'm supportive of a rapid transit network that could deliver across Auckland for significantly less cost than what we are proposing for light rail to the airport, so-called. So I have a real concern, Mr. Chair. Is there any way you can make a change to accommodate that?
Where we're at is that the establishment unit has put in some considerable work to it, has come up with 3 options, and the government is choosing one of those 3 options. He who pays the piper calls the tune. If we're not paying for this, we're not likely to be able to dictate to government that they should have looked at something else. And indeed, I don't believe that the alternative things that have been looked at have stacked up after the work done by the establishment unit in determining what the final options would be. So I think at a certain point, the time for debate over what sort of option we're looking at is over. The government, if the government announces a willingness to invest heavily in our city, in its infrastructure, to radically improve our transport options, then we're not about to start relitigating. No, we think you should have done something else. We've been through the process. We've been informed of how the establishment unit arrived at its conclusions, what it looked at. We've had a councillor on the establishment unit. We've had a local board chair on the establishment unit. The minister has come and talked directly to us about it. I really think realistically to at this point be suggesting that there should be other options would not be a fruitful way to go.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in a circumstance where a councillor like myself believes that this project as it stands has very much been railroaded through, would you entertain a short commentary on my part attached to my vote, because I am not comfortable with A, B and C as they stand? I am supportive of a rapid transit network, and I am fully supportive of investment in a rapid transit network, but I cannot support A, B and C as they are now. So what can you do so that a councillor like myself doesn't want to be blacklisted, in the sense that I'm not opposed to options for Auckland that enhance mobility, but I am uncomfortable with this process and these resolutions as they stand? So how can I communicate that?
Well, that's entirely up to you, councillor. I mean, if you choose, you can vote against it. That's not a course that I'd advise. But what I've said to you in good faith is that I can't entertain further consideration of alternative mechanisms when the government, its departments, the establishment unit, Auckland Transport, Auckland Council have all been involved in this process, and this is where we've got to. This is not the time to relitigate what we're going for. What we should be absolutely focused on is making sure that we can get the funding to enable this this transit system to be put in place, because we do not have the financial means to do it ourselves. Now that's the bottom line. It's pretty blunt, but it's the reality of the situation. And that is not in any way to suggest that I think the establishment unit has got it wrong. I don't believe that it has. Okay, Councillor Newman, your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, to a certain extent, it's been addressed, Your Worship, and maybe it's a political question more than anything, because I think it's been, I kind of feel it's been dealt with at B. I'm just starting to become more and more concerned about whether the government can actually deliver something of this scale. We had the NZ Up program, which was announced in January 2020, if I recall. It got, you know, it really got recast in June, and obviously Mill Road got hammered. We had the pedestrian, the cycling bridge across the Waitemata Harbour announced in June. That's now gone. In our discussions previously with Michael Wood, who I think he's a good minister, but you know, trying to get absolute, I mean, been listening carefully to the wording and around, well, where does the cost, you know, who pays for this? And I think what I've heard from the minister previously has been quite carefully calibrated wording around the need to talk to Aucklanders about the cost of this and have those conversations. And the whole notion of partnership comes up time and time again. And it leads me to the conclusion that I'm just not sure that the government is actually up for 100% of the cost of this. And I'm not sure that they can deliver it, given what will, I think, be an eye-watering cost, to use the term that you identified, and that ultimately they'll look for a cost share, which comes back on good old Auckland Council. So I accept what you've tried to come up with the wording in B, but I'd like to say that the capital cost of this will not be picked up via Auckland Council's balance sheet, because it shouldn't be. Because when we know the final cost, it will be so staggering that nobody, I think, will want to pay for 100% of it. And I certainly don't want to pay for any of the capital cost. I understand the cost, some of the operating cost of it. I understand the planning, you know, the planning work and all of the engineering assessment that will go into it. But the capital cost is something that I think needs to be totally ring-fenced away from Auckland Council, because we can't afford it. I don't really care what other councils around the country think about it. I don't really care what other councils around the country think about it. I care about what we can do about it, and we can't pay for this. That's probably more of a comment, Your Worship, than a question. But I really, as someone who's making an amendment from the chair, I'm just wondering if you could please reconsider the wording around B to give effect to the fact that this cannot be picked up, the capital costs cannot be picked up by Auckland Council.
Mayor, you're talking to yourself again.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Councillor. You've heard me say, and every councillor has heard me say directly to the Minister and the Finance Minister, that we cannot contribute to that in a way that we were required to contribute to the City Rail Link. The City Rail Link, we decided to, or the previous councils decided to meet half the cost of. We are not in a position to do that. We have not put money aside. We've not undertaken to do so, and the government understands our position. The cost is very high. I'm heartened a little bit by the fact that the latest financial report indicates that the government will be in a better financial position in the coming year and years than were predicted by anybody, and that's, you know, this might be a good time to make sure that we have the commitment by government to deliver on this infrastructure locked in. But what we don't want to do is to do anything that would jeopardise the commitment by the government to making that financial contribution, because it is a very significant one, as every one of us would recognise.
Well, I'll reserve my right to speak if I'm able.
Yep, that's fine. Okay, we have Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, a number of councillors are obviously all have concerns around one issue, and the issue is, are you listening to me? I can see you. Good.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to multitask and read a resolution at the same time. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, it's about the fact that the commitment that you've always made. You're saying the right words, but they're not in the resolution. And so my question to you was, could we add something that note that the Mayor has always advised the Minister of Transport and the Minister of Finance that Auckland Council is, and you can either put unable, unwilling, or will not fund the infrastructure associated with the Auckland Light Rail project?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Because that sets the scene, you know. I mean, if someone's going to hand us this project, fantastic, and I agree with you. I think I know where you're trying to go and be. I think the wording is we just need to tweak that up a bit. But I think the point that a number of people are making to you, and that hasn't been made in the resolutions, is that what you've done before this point. So when they come out, whenever they come out and say, guess what, we're spending, you know, 4.75 billion, whatever it is, in Auckland on the light rail project, it's about that these resolutions should say that you've always said, you've always advised the minister before that it's got to this point. You're very happy, and I think I'm happy to support the investment in Auckland myself. But I think the point that I'm asking you whether you believe it's good to make is that we've always advised the Minister of Transport and the Minister of Finance that Auckland Council is unable to fund the infrastructure associated with the project.
Yeah, I think. One, I wouldn't want to personalise it to my position. It's the council's position. But I don't know what would be unclear about the fact that we are not in a financial position. Well, I could strengthen it slightly if you wanted, noting that the council is not in a financial position to and cannot contribute to the cost of construction of light rail.
That would be good.
How's that?
Yeah, it's certainly not in a financial position and won't be for a long time or ever.
Not for a little while, and cannot contribute to the cost of the construction. The cost of the construction, if we can add that into whoever's amending it, cannot contribute to the cost of the construction of light rail. It's really just in a what we're trying to do is give every encouragement to the government to make a huge commitment, but saying, actually, this is not something that is financially possible for us. We can't do it, and that's the truth. And I don't think, to be fair to government, they believe that we are in the financial position to do that.
I think that that what you've got so far is much better for me, and I reserve my right to speak. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chris Darby. Chris, have we got you there? We might have lost. Chris has IT problems from time to time. Councillor Walker, you've got another question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. And it just goes back to my request that there could be some item added, and it might be a D, so that a councillor like myself, who supports a rapid transit network for Auckland, has something positive to vote for, because otherwise I appear to be being blacklisted because of the way the items are constructed. So in C, for example, I support a rapid transit network for Auckland, but I have reservations around light rail. I would simply like to be able to communicate that. There may be other councillors that feel that way, rather than the way it's constructed now. So I'm just asking for your forbearance, please. This is an incredibly significant issue for Auckland as it goes to rapid transit. And to not allow councillors a position to state that they support rapid transit is not helpful for me at all, Mr. Chair. So I'm just seeking your forbearance here.
Yeah, look, I know you're trying to be helpful, councillor, and I think you can put your comments on record when we come to the comments section of this item. But what I can't do is start throwing in other options into this recommendation, because the government is not looking at other options. They're looking at 3 options that have been forwarded to them by the establishment unit, on which we participated with our chief executive, our chair of the planning council, the chair of the Eden Albert local board, etc. So you've got to understand my position in that one as well. This is not the time for us to start saying, look, there are different options we'd like you to consider. We have moved on from that point.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I am not asking for you to add another option.
So,
I am simply asking that there be an opportunity, and that might be D. Note that Auckland Council supports a rapid transit network for Auckland, so that I can have something positive to vote for. We have that in there. I'm fully supportive of a rapid transit network for Auckland.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that, councillor. Perhaps if I'd seen your amendment.
Can you just add that if that's appropriate, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I think that's consistent with what we've got there. Note that Auckland Council supports, or even strongly supports, a rapid transit network for Auckland. I have no problem with that.
So if that's a D, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've achieved happiness and consensus. Okay, Councillor Darby, I think we've got you back.
You have, Mayor. Look, I'll just pass for now. I'm just searching for something, and I'll maybe come back to me, Mayor. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. And just for whoever's putting the recommendation up, it should read, note that Auckland Council strongly supports a rapid transit network for Auckland.
Fantastic.
Excellent. So I haven't got any other questions. I have Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I take a bit of issue with D, because we're trying to get rapid transit networks all over the place. And as you know, my common mantra, we don't have one for our metropolitan centre in Westgate, and there isn't just one rapid transit network. So for me, it's networks, because it's not just one. It just doesn't make sense to say supports rapid transit.
When I talk about a network, councillor, I'm talking about a network that connects, as the earlier recommendation reads, the northwest, the north, the south, and the west. So I'm, one network
it needs to be
made up of
a rapid transit network.
Supports a rapid transit network. Yep, that's good. No, happy to do that. Okay, Councillor Darby, have you sorted out your difficulty there?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm feeling like this is becoming a fruit salad set of motions, to be honest, Mayor, and I think you were on course, and maybe you've been too generous in accommodating things there, Mayor. The D, of course, that already stands. We have a plan. We've got the Future Connect network. We've got the regional transport plan. The list goes on. So I'm actually not sure what that actually means. Now it's really just a restatement of something that we've already committed to under the regional land transport plan. So can I ask the Chief of Strategy here, for Megan, the D, is that not already very well stated elsewhere in our commitment to a range of decisions we've made on transport generally in a lot of places? And the C, I think it's the C, how consistent is C with the decisions that I think are still on the confidential record of the planning committee meeting of, I think, 2nd of September, Are the words aligned? I think it's for the C. Two questions there, Megan.
So in terms of your first one, Councillor Darby, yes, it's that the D or the supporting of a rapid transit network is very clear in lots of our plans and in previous resolutions. In terms of the C and the alignment, yes, it is aligned to those confidential resolutions, which will, of course, be put into the open once the announcement is made and whatever decision the government has made on this project.
Right. Okay, Mayor, I don't know why you need that D. That's not about the Auckland Light Rail project. We're talking about the Auckland Light Rail project. And it's about the route, City Centre Māngere, and the mode, and the regeneration program around it, and the wider network that it expands into North Shore, Northwest. That's not the whole of the network. It is the Auckland Light Rail network, which fits into that broader rapid transit network. I feel like that D is very mealy-mouthed.
Well, it's stating the obvious, and it's consistent, as I see it, with what we've got in recommendation C and what I said in my introductory comments. What we're talking about is not simply one light rail from the city centre to Māngere, notwithstanding how important that is in its own right. This is about that integrating with a broader network, which includes rapid transit to the northwest. It includes the third harbour crossing and linking up with the Northern Busway, and includes the linking with the Manukau to Botany and onto the Eastern Busway. So I'm being accommodating because I think it would be really helpful to indicate to the government that if they're going to make this investment in Auckland at the level that they potentially are going to make, that we can give unanimous support to that. And if it looks like we can't agree on supporting that investment, then, you know, be one or two cabinet ministers around the table that would say, well, why are we bothering? And I'm trying to get a very clear message that if the government invests in our city and what is vital for our city, then we're going to be very supportive of it. And if we're not going to be very supportive of it, you know, really, why would they bother? I mean, that's not just to you, councillor. That's actually a question to everybody. I think it's critically important that we signal that if the government's going to invest this sort of level of capital in our city, that we're not going to quibble about it, but we're going to be very supportive of it, work and collaborate with them to make it work as a transport network and as an urban development program. You know, I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody disagrees with around the table, but I think we need to be pretty explicit about it. Thank you, councillor, for your comment in it. Right, I think I've run out of any questions. I'll now open it up for comments. So, yes, we have a comment from Councillor Newman. I was just about to put the vote. Councillor Newman.
I put the vote.
Good on you, mate. Okay, all those in favour. Oh, sorry, Councillor Simpson. I'm getting signals here. I'm not reading my column as well as I should. Councillor Desley Simpson.
No, I'm going to go with Daniel. Merry Christmas. Put it to the vote.
Fantastic, and what a great Christmas present it'll be. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, no.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
No to A, B, and C. Yes to D.
Oh, councillor. Really? Are you going to insist on that?
Yes.
You have the right to insist on it.
Yes.
I don't know why I bothered accommodating you on recommendation D then.
Yeah.
I already foreshadowed that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you.
with one dissenting voice carried I think 20 to 1 on that basis. Okay, thank you very much for that, councillors. We now move to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 15, forward work programs for the